councils and the European side of the world was taking it up to. To start off with some of the very good frameworks, the regulatory frameworks is what the NREP or the EPR is definitely where I'm going to talk on to. Apart from that, the solid waste management rules is something that has been there, but time and again, and very quickly from 2016 to the 2024 model of it has brought many things. But what we are failing again is something that I would like to discuss on a first hand. Number one is a single window concept. Now we all know how and what Sir rightly mentioned that we have different departments taking up on that particular point, but we aren't aware of this particular thing. I guess the best example is the Swachhata mission that the government incorporated in 2017. And and do we know that what was the purpose? And this is rightly mentioned there. It was not like that the cities would have an internal competition among themselves that who would be the cleanest, who would be the rank one. The main purpose was Indore being a city who's now 6 times in a row becoming the cleanest city. What has the rest of the country or rest of the cities or rest of the states of India have learned from Indore? Why can't we have not incorporated the Indore model as a base model for other cities as well? Forget about other cities. Even these cities in Madhya Pradesh themselves have not been able to incorporate that particular model itself. Being the government being the same, the things are there. But yes, few things that has definitely worked on to is we the people. The people of Indore, and I'll give you a small example. This is a real thing that the school going kids who were in class 2, class 3, class 4, they were given an exercise that what is a difference between a blue dustbin and a green dustbin, and what you need to throw in a blue dustbin and what to throw in a green dustbin. Now, this small exercise with class 2, class 3, class 4 students, when they came back to their homes, they asked their parents not to throw this in a blue dustbin or not to throw this in a green dustbin. Now, as small as this, not only that, in India, where I guess everything would compass to something called as religion, even the temples, the churches, the gurudwaras, they were very clear and how the religious intents on each Sundays were brought onto as a major point that yes, the implementation of particular cleanliness drive would come on. So when I'm talking about the framework, like the National Resource Efficiency Policy, a 2019 policy, still I'll call it into a nascent state, but yes, it has seen a couple of amendments altogether in itself. Now, this policy promotes sustainable production and consumption. Now, for the concept of green economy, as we are seeing on to the 4 R's that revolves around it. So we must be very clear. Now, this is also with one of those particular single window concept that we are demanding from to, and where the government, I guess, is because once we are saying, okay, this is a, for example, borrowing something from Pankaj sir's example as well, that there is a chemical that needs to be disposed of to, from a particular car that's need and that is being taken away. Now, where I guess 15 years policy has been working very well in cities like Delhi, but go to the internal cities of that of Uttar Pradesh or Bihar, you'll still not find the implementation of that 15-year rule being implemented that way. The concept of how EV or the electronic vehicles are being promoted in metropolitan cities or A or B cities, that implementation is still not accepted in C or D cities. Now, this is where the government needs to come out with a program and I'll bring law out here. The constitution under Schedule 7 has really provided it to be a very effective program to be taken on. Now, where we see such the solid waste management disposal rules coming up by the central government, how the pollution control board works on it in collaboration with the local authorities, both at the urban and the rural places, this exactly is coming to an answer. So, and point wise, I'll answer Sir's thing as well. So there is something, and I'm very much aware of it. The purpose also today that I'm wearing this shirt is an example for the same. So this shirt which I'm wearing today is a 100% plastic recycled shirt. So there are NGOs who are working with that particular point, answering Sir's thing that can that chemical be made into a pavement or a road? There are three particular examples that I can cite right now. So there is something, and you can search on as well. It's something called as a feel good eco nurture, is what the NGO that I was trying to mention on. They use these plastics to make the benches, the pavement blocks, which are kept in the parks and other places. And out from many chemicals and other things, they're utilizing those particular things to be there. Now, when I was there in Bhopal, Bhopal had one of the very important roads in the city itself, Ring Road number 1. And that entire patch of 17 kilometers of that road was made where the entire of the plastic things were disposed and that road was used for that construction. Now, these are some wonderful examples. The newest of the metro pillar was utilized and made by the entire of the unrecycled plastics. And when I was coming to that thing, there are 7 types of plastics which we as citizens in our country use. This includes even the worst form of the plastic, which is highly, highly dangerous to us, is PVC. And believe me, for all this thing, each one of us, when we take out our wallets, all our credit cards, all our cards are made of that PVC itself. So when all these things are coming on to, these policies have been in the existence, but the implementation, and when we are setting up examples in our own country, why can't those examples be implemented in that effective manner? Is what, and I am taking on a pause. So over to you now.
Yeah, wonderfully said. In fact, when we talk of cleanliness drive as a competition, you rightly pointed out that Indore model should be copied and every city should implement that. And implementation is what is required, because we do have policies and frameworks in place, but the implementation is not taking place at that level. The awareness is not there in that level, and a lot of work has to be done in this direction. Now I'll move on to Madam Eva Ross. My next question is, what steps should be how a circular economy contribute to the economic development and stability goals of a nation, especially in emerging markets?
Yes, thank you, Shasta, and also to my fellow speakers here for already addressing many interesting insights. I think there's many points that have been mentioned that I can also vouch for, that I've seen in our work. So just for the audience, I would like to mention that today I hope to bring in a bit of the perspective from the entrepreneurial side. I'm part of Climate Kick, and we are a European-based innovation community. And in the last 2 years, we have worked with our local partner, Second Muse, to build and stimulate circular innovation clusters in Bengaluru. So we focus on the entrepreneurial space and see how we can help and support businesses that work in the area of circularity. And just to mention that I appreciate that the first question is looking at circularity from a potential perspective and from like what we can actually do with it. I think often we approach this topic from a rather grim side of things. I think Europeans can be quite good at that, to be honest, to show the devastating effects that we're currently facing with climate change. But I really appreciate the fact that we look at circularity from a positive approach. And I think the first point that I want to make is to echo what my colleague already mentioned here, is to avoid looking at circularity as a vertical and really look at circularity as a potential to apply certain principles across industries and sectors, instead of isolating it and just looking at circularity as the next sustainability concept. I think sometimes we forget to mention the economic potential that circularity can have, and it's not just an environmental necessity, but it's actually an opportunity for us to reduce costs and recuperate valuable and scarce resources, as well as lowering some of the climate risks and health risks that we're facing. And I think also something that we've learned in our program as of now is that it has potential to create many jobs in the recycling business, for example. And I just found like this number, which was really intriguing to me, is that the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who's leading in circularity, actually mentioned that if we move to a circular model, it can actually increase India's current GDP by about 30%. Compared to the current linear economy. So I think it's also about money and about the fact that we can actually generate a lot of income from switching to a circular economy. Especially if we look at more of the emerging market segments that India, for example, excels in. So if you look at technology, manufacturing, construction, but also urban planning, circularity principles can actually support us addressing some of the challenges that we're experiencing. So our work mainly focuses on the waste management sector and supporting the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Bengaluru, focusing on waste management and how can we prevent but also reduce waste. And if you look at the current rate of waste production, then we're looking at a number of 5,000 metric tons a day, of which 30% is actually managed by local government bodies, and the remaining 70% of the solid waste is managed by private companies, by social enterprises, underlining actually the potential and the relevance of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in waste management. So we have great examples such as companies such as Hasiro Dala, Sahas Zero Waste, that play a vital role in actually collecting solid waste. And yeah, just to kind of underline that they have an incremental role in the whole system. And I think it's also a very pressing issue because we see the rapid increase in challenges caused by waste generation and mismanagement, which is often connected to poor infrastructure, poor policy frameworks that not always make it very clear for specific actors to know what to do with the waste. Exactly what my colleague just mentioned. Like I have 6 old phones in my drawer. What do I do with it? Who is the person that I have to reach out to actually do something with it? As well as a sort of consumer behavior element to it, because I think there's still a stigma around using refurbished technology. People don't want to have a refurbished iPhone, which is exactly the same as like a completely new iPhone, but it's just the fact that people have this association with refurbished that it's not the same quality. So I think there's also an immense job that we can do about consumer awareness. And if we're talking about e-waste specifically, we're looking at a number of 20% of the e-waste currently being recycled in India. And the rest ends up in landfill, which is also a great loss of resources that can still be of value. And then that's ends up with the question, the point that I mentioned earlier, that it's also capital loss. It's not just the resource itself, but it's also a financial element to it. And I think it's also valuable to mention that there is, of course, different environmental and social risks related to more linear models, which can actually be addressed by circularity principles. So how can we make sure that, for example, if you talk about e-waste, we don't have toxic substances go into the soil when we dispose it into landfill? How can we make sure that the informal sector, which has an immense role in waste management, that they are safe because they're a big group that is involved in managing this waste? So there's also potential circularity to address, like the more social and environmental side of this topic. And it can help us address these challenges from a more sustainable and long-term perspective. Because I think the first and foremost thing that we have to keep in mind is that a current linear model that we have, it is finite. It's not going to exist for the entirety.
For a long time. Yeah.
Longer. Yeah. So that's that's the first things that I want to mention. I think there's many other points that I make, but let's pause here first.
Yeah, wonderfully said. In fact, the thing that you said that whatever if 20% of electronic waste is recycled, 80% is going into dumps, and we are losing capital there. That was a very valid statement, because whatever ends up in waste, whatever it ends up in landfill, it can be used, it can be recycled. It's actually a waste of resource. And also, along with that, we have to bring in awareness. We'll have to change the mindset of the people. And also, our GDP can be increased to a great extent if we get into circular economy. That was a very valid point made. So now, my next question goes to Mr. Pankaj Srivastava. We have industries in Panipat which import apparel waste from Europe and America to make rugs and blankets. Why are not we doing the same with apparel waste in India?
It's a difficult question. However, I'll try to, with my limited knowledge. So let's see what we do in India, and again look at something which is our very interesting behavior. I go to the behavior part over and over again because I believe that a lot is done, especially in the sustainability space, by first time believers. And look at Professor Srivastava. He's wearing a shirt already which is recycled plastic, and that's a fantastic thing. So that's what thought leaders do. So if you look at the this example of a situational crisis at Panipat, which currently has, to my best of the statistics, something like 7,900 or 8,000 kilotons of recycle, I mean, textile getting generated in this country. That's the kind of volume we are generating. And before the meeting, I was trying to look at some data points, and I figured out that only 5% of that is getting recycled. So that's a piddly tiny dot in that damn ocean to really do something about it. And I was kind of intrigued why we are having this sort of a situation. So the situation has arisen because I go back to my points of what makes me go to and do an act. So first thing is you must learn the belief pyramid. So at the bottom of our thinking, our behavior, which gives certain result, is our belief. This is called the belief or the behavior iceberg. So if you look at this iceberg, at the bottom is your beliefs, then you will have your thoughts. Thoughts will give you some feelings. That will give you and drive some attitudes. Attitudes drives behaviors, and behavior gives results. Now, currently, we are having a situation where in this particular beautiful town, there are more than 2,000 medium and small scale industries which are registered, and maybe an equal number which are not registered. So the government went and saw some mess going on, and they figured out the first problem, which was looking at the water pollution. So there was a huge kind of discharge going on. So they fixed the STPs, the ETPs. Then we spotted the other problem in terms of the air pollution. So we went on fixing that as well. We had very terrible roads and drainages and all that in that city. So we fixed that as well. Even today, there is little or no attention on biodiversity, unfortunately. Right? There is a huge amount of untreated waste which is getting directly put into a river, and we all know what is it. We also have a huge amount of landfill getting generated from that particular city, unfortunately, because when you reprocess imported textile products, about 40 to 50% is what you can consume, and rest will not be usable because of the quality of the fabric or the quality of the yarn you make. So now comes to the point which Eva brought very beautifully into this conversation, was about the concept of refurbished. Indians would love to have something which is new, and it is really very cheap. So if you go to one of our street markets, you can get uh, a decent, kind of a pullover for 300 bucks, something like that. Or you can get a nice jumper, which is about 250 bucks or so. And then we kind of go on reusing it till the way we want. So we have multi processes on the same trouser or the jumper we buy from the street market. After 6 months, we have utilized, we put it into the second stage of circularity. Then, after the second stage is taken care of, we also put it to the third stage into somewhere in our kitchen until it reaches a landfill. Okay, unfortunately. Or there would be other ways that we, give it to Goonj or some other societies similar who are again following the same methodology. The only thing is the hands change. Okay. If it was going through me, I'm following a process. My behavior, my process is what is followed by the society. why again I go to Professor Devanshu's thinking that, yes, there have to be drivers, there have to be education, there has to be something the way we taught this society about plastic or e-recycling. Similarly, for the textile industry, there is hardly any awareness. At least I haven't come across, oh, go and donate and we'll recycle and make fresh, beautiful cloths. And once Indian gets to know, will they buy it? Like Professor Devanshu? I doubt. Some may buy because it's a nice fashion or a fad statement. And if they get to know it was from ABC, blah, 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 you might be even scandalized and so on and so forth. So there is a bit of awareness that this is as good as fresh. It has not been through a bad emission scheme. So, you did not burn uh, enough carbon. So you're not making the world a bad place, but you're making, this is a good place. For the companies, we still in India have got certain clusters where logistically, currently, it is impossible to ship it to those sort of hubs across 2, 3 points in India where you might ship this, and then the quality of our recycled textile isn't that good enough where you can get a substantial yield. Again, I'm not a technical research guy, but whatever little I understand about that industry, because we do have clients there and we go and meet them from a standards and training perspective, I would say they have uplifted a lot of things. So they are socially responsible. You won't see any child labor. They have the sewage and the effluent treatment plants. They are looking after the employees. So they look after the well being, health and safety issues. Now they've become concerned about carbon and energy use. So, very, very, very big awakening is happening. Carbon is still setting in. It's happening because of, if it is a driver from Europe, and if you're exporting, you better fix it and you declare your carbon in the supply chain and so on and so forth. So I think at an India level, we need some government interventions in terms of spreading the knowledge, creating more newer hubs where such processes can happen of recycling these textiles into yarns. Technology also has to play a pivotal role in making this affordable excellence, which would mean you will have to give subsidies, some incentives to small companies to come up and set up these shops, and similar to the car recycling way, because there is something which is a buyback arrangement. So, we need to also have the infrastructure and the government and the SMEs coming together on the likes of, like they had a textile hub. Similarly, you create a hub for recycling. So I feel we need to have a two-pronged approach. One, the society needs to play its role in terms of understanding that refurbished doesn't mean it's something which can't be used. B, we need to put in some SOPs, some method to madness to make sure that people do have access to this and are able to, uh, you know, get the benefit out of not just the cost benefit, but also the benefit of saving the world from this disaster we are heading into.
Wonderfully said. In fact, you have really touched on the point that we have to bring about a behavioral change. We'll have to educate people. And definitely for recycling, we need to have benefits coming up from the government, and subsidies has have to be provided, and it has to be identified as a different sector. Along with that, we have to also look into waste management as a serious area of concern, because we create waste on a daily basis, 365 days. 24/7. So it has to be looked into from that aspect as well. Very beautifully said, sir. Now, my
Thank you.
next question goes to Devanshu, sir. Why is government not making waste segregation at home mandatory?
Uh, Look, it's not about that they're not making it mandatory. I'll borrow my example and I'll continue with the same example as Indore being that wonderful city with 7 years continuously to be in rank one. So today, we all have a Swachhata mission and everything parallelly going on in all the cities. But what extra Indore did is now It is 100%. So we all know this favorite song being coming, Gadi wala aaya ghar se kachra nikala. Now this initiative today in Indore, if I'm talking about, 100% localities are covered under this thing. Now, what has this done? Let us give that. It's not merely that a GPS enabled vehicle is out there with this song playing and the people putting out there. This one initiative for Indore has not only covered the entire thing, I'm not talking on the employment side right now, but has not only covered the entire north, west, east, and south of the Indore, but it has also led the micromanagement of the thing, which is reduced the littering of the your garbage in any particular format. Plus, the garbage which is being now being given from one particular house itself is very clear that it has to be demarcated. Indore has also now started with the fine process, because as we say generally in law, a law without a sanction over it won't be of any usage to anyone. And until unless we don't have, we do fear. I know when we come to, we Indians, we are very clear with it that yes, I'm not going to buy. And I totally agree with Pankaj sir when he said, okay, the moment we come to know it's refurbished, it's something with a, starts with a re, we are not even ready to use it. And that is how we'll have to change them. And it's not merely about educating the people or the masses at large. I'll give you an example. We recently came out with a wonderful, colorful festival of Holi, where we have been saying that it should be, we should save water, we should do this. But a day prior to Holi, when we have the Holika Dahan, each the corners of our cities are filled up with it, and we have a new regime. And I'll talk about Gorakhpur. That's where I celebrated my Holi. I saw a concept of something called as gokast, replacing the wood or the tree branches or something like that. But what happened? People started putting their plastics and everything all on together. Now, at point where it is a wonderful initiative, I guess it is still getting being spoiled on. So a check over the same. The police was there to manage. There shouldn't be any ruckus. But can we have a management system that a Nagar Nigam employee would be there to hand over, or the local municipal organization to be there, that no plastics can be burnt over the same itself? Now, the point is that the government has done, and it's not only about Indore, few other cities outside Madhya Pradesh as well as also incorporated the same as well. But is it still possible in cities like Delhi, in cities like Mumbai? The answer is yes. Now, a proper effective planning and coordination among various departments is one of a very clear thing which the government can come on. The SOP that we are reflecting on out here is a proper management from where, and it's not merely about the stoppage of it, it's also about the origin of it. And as you rightly mentioned, Shrestha ma'am, that each house, when we are covering the minutest or the basic unit of something, I guess that is a proper and effective way to do it. I would like to draw the attention towards the 2024 rules which have been brought on to, where earlier the three types of waste components, or as we popularly call it, the two-way, the biodegradable and the non-biodegradable, have now been classified into four types of wastes. And these four types of wastes are the basic answer of how we are going to proceed on with that and how we are going to take that thing ahead as well. So, but it's not merely about us we knowing it. So the four ways or the four type of waste are the wet waste, the dry waste, the sanitary waste, and the special care waste. What lies under the special care waste was something that we knew earlier used to known as the domestic hazardous waste. Now, how are we ready for the same? How the government can plan an initiative over the same? So again, it is not about the initiative. The initiatives are there, the provisions are there. It's about the implementation of the same. And when I'm talking about implementation, we face the same difficulty when we had the Cyber Policing Act introduced in our country. The police officers, and I can kill you in my eye-opening thing. I was doing an intern with the Madhya Pradesh police. There were certain of the floppy disks which were discovered, and a police constable was putting a screwdriver in it so that it can be attached to the file that was made on. Now, this is what is required at this particular stage. So yes, the awareness and the education, not only to the families, to we as citizens, but also to the implementation agencies. Yes, I would still advocate that the model and the purpose of Swachhata mission that was brought onto, or the Swachh Bharat mission that we see, that if one city was advocated, why can't the best practices be incorporated in other places as well? And that would certainly start off with the first thing. And you read the lessons learned from Indore is this itself. Indore has taken now a new step, not only being 7 years with that thing, they have become the first airport to be entirely dependent on, and there would be no carbon zero emission for that airport itself. This has also become the first state where it's a first beggar-free city in the country. Now, we might be looking, which is we are keeping the beggar away. But can we relate beggar with what the sanitation and other things are also out there? Is exactly the point that we are looking forward.
Very rightly said, sir. In fact, when we look into law, the implementation of law, and along with that, sanctions are something that that has to work together. And definitely, we have one example as Indore, and it should be replicated as mentioned before. And when Indore can, why can't rest of the nation? Very rightly said, sir. So now I move on to the next question, that is to Madam Eva. What steps should be taken in financing the startups so that innovative business ideas materialize and flourish, and also enlighten us from a climate KIC perspective on this?
Yeah, thank you, Shasta. So I think I can mention a few barriers that we have experienced on this topic. So in the last 2 years, we worked with startups and entrepreneurs from all kinds of maturity levels, early stage, a little bit more mature, focusing on different, circularity interventions. And I think the main thing that has come back to us is, of course, it's probably not a surprise, but it's just the lacking availability of funding, especially at seed stage. So it's very difficult for entrepreneurs to access funding and markets, and especially when you look at the pipeline. So if you have an early stage company, they might apply to an incubation program, and then after that, they're basically left on themselves to kind of move forward. So it's really difficult to move through the process. So I think that's one of the main things that I can mention as a first barrier. And I think we have to dive a little bit deeper into why is that? Because I think if we're looking into the financial sector, it's very difficult for a circular business to compete with more linear companies, because that's still the modi operandi. So that's the first focus of a lot of funders. They look at the more linear business models, and they try to use that approach to validate and score a circular business model, which is in a lot of areas different from a more linear company. So it's more difficult for them to adhere to the requirements of funders in many cases. And I also want to touch upon something that has been mentioned in the conversation earlier, is that there is still a relatively strong focus on downstream solutions, like recycling, repurposing, recovering, which is of course still circularity. But I think there could be massive potential to focus more on upstream solutions. So how can we design products and services in a better way so that it actually doesn't generate as much waste? Because as much as we like to focus on circularity, if we look at more from the recycling perspective, circularity is not just recycling, it goes beyond that. And I think there's many different companies out there that would actually want to do something around the upstream solutions. So that is something that I feel that there is a gap in the funding landscape as well, to support those type of businesses. I think connected to this also is that there is a bit of a knowledge gap when you look at the financial sector. So how can we expect funders, potential investors to validate a company if they don't really know the more technical concepts of circularity? So that is something that we've been focusing on as Climate Kick as well, to see if we can provide a bit more capacity building for both for the stakeholders that we support, but also more in the demand field. To increase basically the knowledge on circularity. And I think also something that I can mention is that startups in the circularity space often have a longer gestation period. So before they can actually come to a proof of concept, it just takes more time. So that is something that we have to incorporate when we look at circularity businesses and their business models. Like, it will take more time for them to show what they can actually do and the impact that they can make. As well, of course, as some of the impacts that they can make that are less focused on, such as social impact, environmental impact. So those are a few of the elements that I would love to see more when we look at the financing instruments. And I think just to finally conclude my some of the barriers. So I think there is a great demand for more demand-driven innovation. So if you're asking me if the supply is enough, are there enough businesses in the circularity space? The answer from my perspective is yes, definitely. But there is a disconnect between the supply and the demand. So to give entrepreneurs a better opportunity to design things that actually have market potential, we should look at some demand owners to see, can they maybe support startups to develop products and services that are viable for growth as well. So those are a few of the elements that I can mention from our.
Very rightly. Yeah. So very rightly said, when we look into organizations which are working in the area of circularity business, so they do take much longer time, and the whole ball game of financing these business is very different from the linear businesses. So that is a very important point you pointed out, and there have to be specified players in this area to understand these businesses and accordingly fund it. So that was a great input. And now I'm moving to a common question, which is to everyone over here. That is, what are the major challenges faced by Indian companies in contributing towards circular economy? Is it the mindset or the infrastructure or plain profits?
So if I go first,
Yes,
like we have
yes,
been
you
having
should.
this order. So since you have kind of already bucketed up into three, in the sense like, is it a mindset or is it the policy? Look, there is still a whole lot of people who have got a mindset, right? And I know for sure that this is not a new thing. The word may be new, circularity, for a lot of people, but it's not a new subject. It's been there for some time. From a technology perspective, again, we must understand that we do have ample, substantial, reuse, repurpose, recycle. There is sort of things available. We can always discuss what good looks like and what we currently have, but there is still enough. Humans have got a problem. We are typically, all of us across the earth, from the other part of the Pacific to Atlantic, humans are irrational. I would prefer to do things which puts me in the comfort zone first. And if I have a choice, I would prefer not to do something which would need me to stretch and do something in addition to what I am currently doing. And therefore, if it is available at my door, at my desk, on my internet, I will still try to, as a matter of choice, I will prefer to do something about it. There's another process of evolution that there is, uh, as you get professional, you get into business, you now know that you need to follow certain protocols. You need to register your business. You need to have, taxes paid to the government. You do have some, specific things to do, the way you act, with all the social and structure and the norms of that particular state where you operate across the world. So there is some systemic behavior we are all used to. what we need at this point of time is a movement which is not just a social movement, but a movement in terms of a clear drivers for what is in it for me as an industry, as an entrepreneur, as an individual. B, when I contribute back to the society, what I am going to get back because it may require some effort. C, when I take that first step, when is that step going to end? Is it an endless thing? I'll be very worried. Or is it few steps? Then I'll know what to do with first step, second step, and when to start, stop. So all I'm saying is we need to come up with a framework for the current dots to connect to each other and then work together because there is already enough substance we have, but the dots are all disintegrated. Not just here, but you might have all heard about broken supply chains across the world. We've also heard about the black holes in the supply chain. So we don't know who is manufacturing what and what is coming. And Louis Vuitton would be very scandalized if they don't know what is coming from where and have the 100% traceability of origin of the product. And if that Louis Vuitton bag is found in the hands of Eva and Eva is on a red carpet at maybe the one of these Italian fashion shows, there's good chance that she gets spotted on with something which was manufactured in a particular country where we have social issues. So connecting the dots and clearly mentioning to the entrepreneurs, to the business, to the industry, what is in it for them will take this happen because I can give you one example of how it happened in the case of energy. We all had very different sort of incandescent bulbs in this country. We moved from those bulbs to tube lights. And today it's a norm that you can't get an incandescent bulb, the yellow lamps anywhere. If you have to buy, you'll have to figure out where to buy. Maybe you go to Amazon and somebody's selling. Everything is LED bulbs now in this country. We changed everything. Why? Because we said you need to switch over. It was expensive, but we put some, in Hindi they say that you put a danda and then things happen in a way. So you need to put some policy. You need to be strict about enforcing the policy. You will get those things happen. Government needs to take the first step, followed by all the stakeholders to be connected to these dots. Ultimately, as I said, we are humans. I will consider what is in it for me, whichever format I am. I am a dad, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a worker, I'm a person who's supplying something to somebody. How I'm consciously becoming sustainable and circular is my choice, right? But if there is something for me, I'll definitely switch over to something which will be good for us, good for the society. It happened in the CFL bulbs. We all have this example, and you can see we are saving significant amount of electricity. We are an electricity positive country right now. We can achieve the same circularity for any other business as well.
Very rightly said, sir. Sir, yes, Devanshu, sir.
Just like to add, I totally resonate with what Pankaj sir rightly mentioned. There isn't any point that I do not agree or a certain point. But just to add and to just cite an example. So Indian companies are facing problems is only because what the Indian companies are telling on. But can we have a cluster? For example, again, one thing which I guess Pankaj sir would also like to mention is about the BS standards. Now, I'm talking about a BS4 and prior to the BS4 situation. You saw the major thing for the pollution were the automobile industry as what was claimed by them. It was the diesel engines, it was whatever thing. But as soon as the BS4 came into place and then the government's decision of matching it up with the BS6, what happened? It was the automobile industry who got affected the most. But this automobile industry, and that's completely respectable thing that all of them got together, that nothing comes before the mother nature earth itself. And all of them followed uniformly the concept or the propositions of BS6 that particular way. And this exactly is what the regulation of the industry is what was talking all that we all should be talking about. It's something that we are talking in relation to the any small structured, unstructured agencies, or like we had this example of the clothing industry. We had certain examples. Now it's not merely about that industry. Have you ever heard, and they do come out with a major of the waste. For the past 3 years, I'm living in a place which has the highest automobile manufacturing units. This is Gurgaon, this is Greater Noida, this is this particular belt itself. But have you ever heard that they are the one who are contributing towards pollution, whether it's the STP, whether the waste is being given to the nearby river or something? No. The reason is very clear. When us when an entire industry comes into together, they all come out with not only these standards, but these standards. Sir rightly started off with ISO. ISO 20400 is what we were reflecting on. Can we as a country, as a policy makers, as and I initiate the PPP model as well, the public private partnership model itself, that can we just collaborate, that these are the minimum standards, can we take a notch up above the minimum standards, can we just take these things as a skeleton model and frame an all new outlook over the same itself. And today, when India jumped from BS4, decision of BS4 not going to BS5 to come to BS6, and I know Europe is ready by July to come out with their European Standard 7, India is on the verge to coming out. The LED example has been a perfectly wonderful example. But today, is or are we supposed to take out on a point that if somebody is manufacturing a non-LED bulb or something as the chlorofluorocarbons that was there in the refrigerators or something, half of us do not know what would be the ill effect of the same itself. But it is a thing that, okay, now I want an electric compliance or an electric appliance in my kitchen that should be 5 star. Now, it's not about the 5 star, it's about the consumption thing that was told on to. That if I'll have this standard thing, my electricity consumption would go down, in order I'll pay a less bill. And that attracts me as a consumer to take it up. So when we are structuring an industry altogether, and any such industry, I am recently seeing how the major news about the pollution to Yamuna River has been taken on to in the capital of our country. How the government is taking an initiative that why the river which is coming very clean, but in that area of Nazafgarh where major of the industries are there, why they are adding and they saying that it's completely fine. Can we have stop dams? Can we have those things? So it's about regularization, it's about the uniformity, and it's about unity. So when we talk about the triple R model, which is now expanded to 4R models, which is now in the coming time would be a 5R model, can we as Indian industries or Indian companies be coming out with a 4U models, which includes uniformity, which includes uniqueness, which includes uniformity, and the fourth U, which they can be coming out, would be in the form of the unification of the products, which would be a base, and what a base has been provided, it is the minimum level. Anything above, and I'll just conclude by saying this. So in the academics domain, UGC sitting as a prime body for all the university or colleges, they provide us as a basic, the minimum requirement to become a teacher would be a master's and a net exam. A minimum requirement to become or to promote from an associate professor to to a professor would be a minimum of 8 years of teaching. That doesn't make me that at the 8th year when I complete, I will be eligible. That's a minimum standard. Anything above and over it would always be a better program that we are taking on to. And this exactly is what is the need of the hour, that a uniform process of a particular industry shall be coming out. And we, in our own country, we have many things of what one can be used in the other format of. So that is how I would like to conclude this particular answer.
Wonderfully said. Ma'am, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I just want to like grab back to the point around awareness. I think that's something that we're talking about quite a lot actually in this conversation. But I think, I just want to give a very difficult answer, which is not something that people like often. But I think there's just different aspects that have to work together in order to stimulate circularity and business models in the circularity space to actually grow and get more opportunities to access markets. I just want to give like a quick example. So I'm based myself in the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands it's very popular and common to use solar panels. I think right now, if you don't have solar panels, you're probably one of the weirdos out there that hasn't got the memo to actually have that, because it has far-going financial incentives, of course. But if you just go back 10 years ago, it was really not so common to have that. And you were actually looked at a bit, weird, because it was associated with more risks. But I just want to highlight that I think the reason that we're now having this trend, which is more normalized, is because there's also a lot of inputs from the government. They've put incentivizing subsidies to make sure that people were stimulated to actually use this technology. And it also has a technological aspect to it, right? Because this type of innovation has developed over the years and has been improved quite a lot. So now it's more common to use it. So it's not just, of course, that people really like the fact that they can, reduce their energy bill, because what's good for the wallet, that's always something that people like to look into. But it's a set of different aspects that have contributed to that success, I would say. So that's also what we've seen in our work in the space, is that there are different areas that have to come together and contribute to making this circular business model more interesting. So you can look, for example, at the policy framework. There's sometimes I spoke to a lot of entrepreneurs mentioning to me, like, we would love to test out certain things, but the current regulative rules right now don't allow us to actually test out certain innovations. Or another common comment is that there is a lacking infrastructure for small-scale entrepreneurs that would love to test out certain things, but they don't have the access to the infrastructure. So in that specific area, you could, for example, work with more established companies or multinationals that might have a bit more of the infrastructure in place that can support the testing of this type of innovations. And I think that's one of the barriers that has been most complicated for us to address, is that there is a lot of traction in the circularity space when you look at the entrepreneurship side of things, but it's all very fragmented. It's really difficult to bring together different stakeholders and make them to collaborate, because of course there's also an element of competition. Stakeholders can sometimes be a bit cautious when they want to like share their business model or their ideas, because of course everybody is being careful with what they want to share. So how can we actually bridge those silos and actually work together? And can we create something in collaboration rather than doing it all by ourselves? Because I think if we want to create more impact, then the only way forward is with collaboration. And I want to make one last point, is I think there's also a lot of positive points that we can mention here, is that also in our last 2 years, we've learned that the government of Karnataka, I think, in my knowledge, is the first governmental body in India that has adopted a policy on circularity. So there's also recognition from the political side of things that incentives have to be created for circular solutions. So I think that's a very good sign to the ecosystem as well, that there is the mindset change to actually work together on that. I think I can conclude there from my side.
Yeah, wonderfully said. So, in fact, with this discussion, as we come to the end of this discussion, we have sorry, we have come across a lot of beautiful points. We have come across the fact that there should be awareness, the fact that if one city can do it, why cannot others do it? Also, there should be incentive from the government, and also there a very important fact that people should see benefit. Once they see benefit, they also bring about the behavioral change in them. So the LED example was a beautiful example in this direction. So with this, we come to the end of this webinar, wherein how circular economy can make India more sustainable. I thank all the speakers, and truly thankful for their time and the valuable information that they shared with us. And I'm sure the viewers have good takeaways from this discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting.
Thank
And
you.
just one point to add here,
Sure.
with the panel members. I must compliment Exneco for this wonderful initiative as well. But it is also your duty and the entire team to publicize it much more. So this is one of an initiative awareness thing that we are talking about. So it's our duty together to expand it not only to the thing, because what we are talking about is again like I'll take a learning from here. Pankaj sir said for many of the points, and I have taken note of the same. Again, Eva coming from Netherlands, which I guess is one of, because last summer I was there, and they have a lockdown process when the quality index goes from double digit to a triple digit. Now, when we had to implement such things, there's something as a learning thing. And this platform which you brought us today is one of those particular things. As an academician, if I'm learning few of things from Pankaj sir and from Eva ma'am there, I guess imagine how this 1.5 hours when we are spending on to. If this is reached to the masses, initiatives with how education is collaborating, how industry is bridging, and they're ready to become on a common goal. And this common goal is exactly, and that is where UN has named it the Sustainable Development Goals. That exactly each of us can contribute it, learn it, and adapt it. So great job for you all, but it's your duty as well now to expand it much more towards a particular.
Definitely. In fact, we are coming up with a summit. We are expanding slowly. So and that would be also in the area of sustainability, and we'll keep on exploring areas and avenues to expand further. And it was really great to have you all on this platform. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.